The 1970s were a turning point. Gas prices soared, regulations tightened, but out on the streets, something loud and defiant still rumbled. These weren't just cars, they were statements of pride, power, and American grit. From fire-breathing Hemis to underrated giants, the muscle cars of this era left a mark that still echoes today. Let's take a ride back in time and revisit 10 of the absolute best muscle machines the 70s ever gave us. 1970 Dodge Challenger RT Convertible. If one car could sum up the muscle car era in both power and presence, it's the 1970 Dodge Challenger RT Convertible. With its long, sculpted lines and a stance that looked fast even standing still, this machine was born to be bold. And under the hood, a 426 cubic inch Hemi V8, pushing out a jaw-dropping 425 horsepower, pure, untamed American fury. But here's what makes it legendary. Only 5 of these convertibles were built with both the Hemi and the 4-speed manual. Just 5. That's not a car, that's a crown jewel. Those lucky enough to own one didn't just have transportation, they had pride. Parking one of these outside a burger joint or cruising a Friday night strip was a statement. People turned to look, and owners knew exactly why. It wasn't about being loud, it was about being unforgettable. And anyone who ever sat behind that wheel, they still talk about it like it happened yesterday. 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS 454 LS6. If there was ever a king of the street in 1970, it was the Chevelle SS 454 LS6. This wasn't just a muscle car, it was a brute in a sport coat. With its understated styling and twin racing stripes, it didn't scream for attention. But under the hood, a 454 cubic inch big block V8 putting out a staggering 450 horsepower on paper. In reality, it delivered even more. This was the most powerful production car of its time, and it lets you know it with every tap of the throttle. It didn't just move. It roared, it lunged, it ruled. Ask anyone who had one, and you'll hear the pride in their voice. They knew they had something special, not just fast, but feared. The LS6 wasn't just for weekend joyrides. It was for shutting down challengers, from traffic lights to back roads. To own a Chevelle SS 454 in 1970 was to carry a badge of dominance, and for many it was the ride of a lifetime. 1970 Buick GSX Stage 1. Don't let the name Buick fool you. The 1970 GSX Stage 1 was anything but soft. This wasn't Grandpa's Sunday cruiser. This was a full-blown street brawler in a tailored suit. Under the hood sat a 455 cubic inch V8 with 510 pound-feet of torque, more than any other muscle car that year. Officially, it was rated at 360 horsepower, but anyone who owned one knew better. This car could outrun Hemis and leave big block Chevys in its dust. And the look? Bold stripes, rear spoiler, hood-mounted tack. This thing wasn't subtle. But what made it special was how it mixed brute strength with a smooth ride. You could smoke tires at the stoplight, then cruise home in comfort. GSX owners took pride in flying under the radar until they floored it. It was a sleeper's dream wrapped in high-contrast paint. Ask a Buick guy today, and he'll tell you, owning a Stage 1 wasn't about flash. It was about having the firepower and the confidence not to brag about it. 1970 Plymouth Hemi Cuda. The 1970 Hemi Cuda wasn't just feared, it was respected. With its aggressive stance, bold colors, and signature shaker hood poking through the center, it looked like it meant business, and it did. Beneath that hood sat the legendary 426 Hemi, breathing through dual 4-barrel carbs, delivering 425 horsepower and a sound that could shake storefront windows. But this car wasn't just about numbers, it was about attitude. The Hemi Cuda came alive with every stomp of the gas, surging forward with raw, unfiltered force. No frills, no apologies. And those who drove it? They carried themselves differently. You didn't own a Hemi Cuda quietly. You didn't blend in. Whether it was track day or Saturday night on Main Street, people noticed. And deep down, every owner knew they had something special, something rare, loud, and full of soul. Ask any old-school gearhead today, and you'll see the grin before they say a word. Because the legend of the Hemi Cuda never really faded, it just got faster in our memories. 1970 Ford Mustang Boss 429. The Boss 429 wasn't just built for the street, it was born for the track, specifically NASCAR. To meet racing requirements, Ford had to produce a handful of street-legal Mustangs with their massive 429 cubic inch V8 shoehorned under the hood. The result? A wide-body, high-dollar monster with purpose in every panel. Officially rated at 375 horsepower, the Boss 429 was notoriously underrated. Tuned right, it could push well past 500. But this car wasn't just about numbers. It was about engineering precision. From its front spoiler to its massive intake manifold, everything screamed performance. And for those lucky few who got one, fewer than 500 were made in 1970. It wasn't just a car, it was a badge of distinction. You didn't stumble into a Boss 429. You sought it out, paid dearly, and wore the keys like a medal. Ask anyone who owned one. Firing it up felt like stepping into a race car wearing a license plate. And back then, that feeling? Absolutely priceless. 1974 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am SD 455. By 1974, the golden age of muscle cars was fading fast. Emission laws tightened, insurance rates soared, and most manufacturers pulled back. But Pontiac, they doubled down. The Trans Am SD 455 wasn't just a survivor, it was a last stand. Under the shaker scoop was a Super Duty 455, a heavily fortified V8 that put out a conservative 290 horsepower on paper. But real-world tests proved it could outrun just about anything still rolling off the line. It was fast, it was loud, it was defiant, and owning one meant you hadn't given up on the muscle car dream. Ask anyone who drove one back then, and you'll hear the pride. While others were settling for less, SD 455 owners knew they were behind the wheel of something rare, something rebellious. Even today, it's remembered not just as a powerful car, but as a symbol. The last fire breather standing tall while the rest went quiet, and that meant everything to the people who owned one. 1970 Ford Torino Cobra. The 1970 Torino Cobra wasn't flashy. It didn't need to be. This was Ford's answer to raw, unapologetic speed. Beneath its long, sleek hood sat a 429 cubic inch Cobra Jet V8, pushing out 375 horsepower and 490 pound-feet of torque. This thing could hit 60 in under 6 seconds and fly past 150 miles per hour. It wasn't built for comfort. It wasn't built for show. It was built to win. And that's exactly why Motor Trend named it Car of the Year. Drivers who owned one back then, they knew what they had. This wasn't a car you bragged about. It was a car that proved itself at every green light. With a 4-speed manual and heavy-duty suspension, the Torino Cobra handled like a missile on rails. And when that big V8 roared to life, people turned to look, even if they didn't know what it was. To own one was to fly under the radar, with a grin on your face and power under your right foot. 1971 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am 455. By 1971, regulations were starting to squeeze the life out of muscle cars. But Pontiac's Firebird Trans Am 455 still had fight left in it. Beneath the bold graphics and shaker hood sat a 455 cubic inch V8, officially rated at 335 horsepower, though in truth it had more to give. This was one of the last years you could get serious muscle in a factory-built Pontiac. And for those who did, it felt like owning the final chapter of a glorious era. With aggressive styling, a tight suspension, and that trademark white and blue paint, the 71 Trans Am wasn't just fast, it was fierce, and owners knew it. They didn't just drive their cars, they represented something: defiance, performance, and Pontiac pride. Even today, spotting one at a car show still turns heads and raises eyebrows. 1971 Oldsmobile 442. In a world of loud decals and louder engines, the 1971 Oldsmobile 442 took a different path. It didn't need stripes or spoilers to prove its point. It had something better. A 455 cubic inch rocket V8, pushing 370 horsepower and an earth-moving 500 pound-feet of torque. This was muscle with manners, ferocious when provoked, but smooth and composed on the open road. It came with upscale touches, wood grain trim, comfortable seats, and a ride quality that felt almost refined. Owners of the 442 didn't shout about it. They didn't have to. They knew what they had, and they liked it that way. It was the kind of car that let performance speak for itself. Ask any Olds fan, and they'll tell you, the 442 wasn't just fast, it was dignified. And in a sea of noise, that quiet confidence made it unforgettable. 1971 Plymouth Road Runner 446 barrel. The 71 Road Runner didn't whisper, it howled. With a 440 cubic inch V8 topped by 3 two-barrel carbs, this beast delivered 385 horsepower and a deep chest-rattling rumble that could be heard before it was seen. The redesigned body was sleeker, wider, and bolder. And that air-grabber hood with shark teeth decals? Pure attitude. But what owners loved most was the personality. This wasn't just a fast car. It was playful, loud, and unapologetically wild. Cruising in a 446 Road Runner was like piloting a cartoon with claws. And for those behind the wheel, it wasn't about being refined. It was about having fun and owning the road. Even today, just hearing that engine fire up is enough to bring a smile to anyone who remembers what muscle really meant. These weren't just cars, they were memories on wheels, built with steel, speed, and soul. Each one told a story, not just of horsepower, but of pride, freedom, and the golden age of American grit. Maybe you owned one. Maybe you just dreamed of it. Either way, they left a mark. Which one would you take for one more ride? Let us know. We'd love to hear your story.